70 years have passed. Why Chinese mainland? Late? It is too late to take military reunification action against Taiwan. That's a question that's intrigued millions of people. Obviously, China's military strength is not what it used to be. Why are you still standing still? Is it because of fear of American intervention? Or are you worried that the price of war is too high? Or China has a much bigger game underway? When all the opinions are divided, a word from an American expert, but it seems to have revealed the truth. Let everyone who hears it can't help but respect it. The audience was speechless. What is it exactly? What is the deeper logic behind it? This video, we will do it in a relaxed and fun way. A discussion of this question full of suspense. From historical context to military strategy, from Sino-US relations to international pressure, to the various variables within China, we will provide a comprehensive analysis of 70 years. Why has China been slow to treat Taiwanese animals? And what exactly did the American expert say? In a word, let's find out. To answer why China has been slow to respond to Taiwan, first you have to look back. The historical scene from more than 70 years ago, in 1949, the dust of the civil war between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party was settled. Chinese mainland. By the Communist Party of China, the People's Republic of China was established. The defeated Kuomintang regime retreated to Taiwan. The Beijing authorities led by Mao Zedong at that time. The original plan was to complete the liberation of the mainland, pursue victory and liberate Taiwan. However, history is often full of variables. Just at this moment, war broke out on the Korean peninsula. June 1950. The Korean War broke out suddenly. The U.S. 7th Fleet immediately entered the Taiwan Strait. The direct involvement of the United States. The plan for the People's Liberation Army to cross the sea and attack Taiwan. Forced termination. For the newly established New China, it's like a cooked duck flying. Due to the weakness of the People's Liberation Army Navy at that time, only a small number of ships were received from the Kuomintang, unable to contend with the powerful American fleet. The intervention of the United States has put the Taiwan issue on hold. It's a problem that we still have. The war ended in 1953 with the Korean Armistice, but the situation in the Taiwan Strait has not calmed down as a result. 1954 to 1955. The first crisis broke out across the Taiwan Strait. The People's Liberation Army shelled Kinmen, Matsu, and other outlying islands, attempt to pressure the U.S. military in Taiwan. However, the United States not only did not retreat, instead, with the Taiwanese authorities, signed the Sino-American Mutual Defense Treaty in 1955, publicly include Taiwan in the U.S. defense circle. Facing the formation of each alliance, Beijing, we can only temporarily press the urgent idea of reunifying Taiwan. In 1958, the People's Liberation Army shelled Kinmen again, launched the second Taiwan Strait Crisis, testing America's bottom line. But the United States still sent a fleet escort to support Taiwan. Result: the two sides are locked in a tug-of-war alternating between shelling and ceasefire. Still unable to shake the island of Taiwan. Then, throughout the 1960s, the Chinese mainland itself has experienced a big leap. Genie Cultural Revolution. Wait for civil unrest. No time to care about Taiwan. Same period. The United States continues to provide Taiwan with military assistance. Make Taiwan's defense more impregnable. Unification of Taiwan by force. Temporarily set aside by history. The turning point came in the 1970s. The international landscape has undergone tremendous changes. Sino-US relations began to thaw. In 1971, the People's Republic of China replaced Taiwan. A seat at the United Nations. 72 Nixon's visit to China. China and the United States moved towards détente. Then Beijing discovered the diplomatic front that isolates Taiwan without a war. Perhaps more effective? In 1979, China and the United States officially established diplomatic relations. The United States has revoked diplomatic relations with Taiwan and terminate the Mutual Defense Treaty. It seems to have given China a great opportunity to unify Taiwan. Surprisingly, Beijing did not take advantage of the opportunity. Instead, in the same year, launched a self-defense counterattack against Vietnam. They switched to Taiwan. The policy of peaceful reunification proposed the concept of one country, two systems, hoping to achieve national unity in a peaceful manner. Enter the 1980s. Both sides of the Taiwan Strait are adjusting their strategies. Chinese mainland, busy with reform and opening up. Economic takeoff. No time to use force. Prefer to create an environment for peaceful development. Taiwan side, under the leadership of Chiang Ching-kuo, society gradually opened up. The two sides started the return of veterans to their hometowns to visit relatives in 1987. There was the first people-to-people exchange in decades. Armed conflict seems to be fading away. However, the issue of unification has not been solved, just being put on hold waiting for the moment. In the 1990s, Taiwan experienced a wave of democratization, the growing local consciousness and Taiwan independence. In 1995, Taiwanese leader Lee Teng-hui visited the United States, sparking strong dissatisfaction in Beijing. The following year, it developed into the 1996 Taiwan Missile Crisis. The People's Liberation Army tests missiles in waters near Taiwan, trying to intimidate voters into not supporting Lee Teng-hui. However, U.S. President Clinton sent two carrier battle groups, sailing towards the waters near Taiwan. Escort for Taiwan. This move once again warns Beijing. The United States is still in power. The biggest obstacle on the road to the five unifications. At that time, the gap between China's military power and that of the United States was huge. I can only watch Taiwan. The first elected leader takes office. But there is nothing we can do. Enter the 21st century. The ups and downs of cross-strait relations. In 2000, DPP candidate Chen Shui-bian, elected leader of Taiwan. The end of the long-term Kuomintang rule for the first time, caused the mainland to be on high alert, facing the referendum proposed by Chen Shui-bian. One country on one side, etc. Beijing passed an anti-secession law in 2005. Make it clear that antivirus is an animal justification, but it still emphasizes peaceful reunification as the first choice. Even so, a stern warning. The People's Liberation Army still hasn't crossed the strait half a step. In the meantime, the U.S. military grants and assistance to Taiwan have not stopped for a moment, making Beijing's animals more machine-oriented towards Taiwan. After 2008, the Kuomintang Mayingzhou has been in power for 8 years. Relative easing of cross-strait relations. Beijing has no reason to resort to force. 2 AC heat fallout. Close economic relations. But political differences persist. In 2016, the DPP Tsai Ing-wen came to power, refused to recognize the 1992 consensus. Cross-strait official contact is suspended. Tensions across the Taiwan Strait escalate again. The mainland has begun to step up military training around Taiwan, like a fighter jet cruising, patrols around the island warships, etc. The posture of forced deterrence has been significantly improved. However, even if the situation is tense, People's Liberation Army, still no real step out of the essence of attacking Taiwan. At 2019, Xi Jinping is commemorating at the 40th anniversary conference of the publication of the Letter to Taiwan Compatriots. Take a strong stance. The motherland must be unified. It's bound to unify. And stress that there will be no commitment to renounce the use of force. This speech raised outside concerns about Beijing, speculation that could accelerate the pace of unification. However, in the same year, Taiwan's leadership election, the result was won by Tsai Ing-wen, who advocated against Beijing. Beijing's 5 unification plan, forced to press the pause button again. August 2022, U.S. politician Pelosi visits Taiwan, bringing cross-strait relations to a freezing point. Beijing is immediately in the Taiwan Strait, unleashed unprecedented large-scale military exercises. A brief sea and air encirclement of Taiwan was formed. Many people feared that this would be a prelude to war. However, after the exercise, the People's Liberation Army still chooses to play the flag and put out the drum, did not take the opportunity to launch a real attack. Throughout more than 70 years of history, we can see early Chinese mainland. I have more than enough heart for Taiwanese animals. Subsequently, and because of the international situation and its own strategic adjustment, delay the unification. On the one hand, there's interference from outside powers. There are also internal priorities. The historical context clearly shows, instead, at every critical node chose to hold. Which brings us to a more intriguing question. Even today, the military strength of the People's Liberation Army has long since changed. Why does China still choose to hold back? What are the military and strategic considerations? Let Beijing delay in pressing the trigger for an armed attack. From a purely military perspective, attacking Taiwan is by no means conscious. Although the People's Liberation Army has made rapid progress in equipment in recent years, but to carry out landing operations across the Taiwan Strait, the difficulty can be imagined. In history, amphibious landings are widely regarded as the most complex. One of the dangerous military operations need to govern the air. Sea governance, a large fleet of landing ships and logistical supply lines. The Taiwan Strait is also more than 130 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. If this part of the sea goes to war, will be littered with missiles and torpedoes. It was like a trip to hell for Du Hai's army. Even if you successfully reach the coast, waiting for the landing troops is also Taiwan. Rough terrain, and both fortifications. Western Taiwan, there are not many beachheads suitable for mass landings. Defenders can predict the landing location early. And stand ready. Once the People's Liberation Army was thwarted in the early days of the landing, banished back to sea, the tide of war will turn sharply. It is an almost unbearable failure for Beijing. Even if the People's Liberation Army succeeds in gaining a foothold in Taiwan, the battle is far from over. Taiwan is small but densely populated. Many cities. Street fighting will be extremely tragic. If the People's Liberation Army hits Taipei all the way, bound to face huge casualties and severe damage to the city. For China, which claims to liberate Taiwan, if in the end become a threat to the people of Taiwan, massive casualties and destruction of homes. Political pressure will also be intense, not to mention the vagaries of war itself. In modern warfare, no matter how advanced the weapons are, there is no guarantee of zero mistakes. A critical error of judgment or unexpected event, it may make the official credit fail. Beijing is well aware of the risks of military action. Knowing yourself and knowing your enemy an ancient art of war. From undefeated to the prudent principle of modern strategy. It means that unless you are fully prepared, otherwise, policymakers will not easily launch large-scale. In addition to war, Taiwan will not sit still. Although the Taiwan Army cannot compare with the overall strength of the People's Liberation Army, but for decades, they are actively enhancing asymmetric warfare capabilities. Developed a large number of weapons and warfare used to defend against the landing of the People's Liberation Army. Techniques such as laying underwater mines, anti-ship missile, mobile rocket launchers, and anti-aircraft missiles, etc. It was severely damaged when the enemy crossed the sea and grabbed the beach. With Taiwan's mountainous and hilly terrain, suitable for guerrilla resistance. Once the People's Liberation Army falls into a long-term occupation operation, it is entirely possible for Taiwan's military and civilians to resist stubbornly, turn the war into a protracted quagmire. This is also a situation that Beijing does not want to see. Overall, from a military and strategic perspective, despite the overwhelming strength of the People's Liberation Army, equipment advantage, but the high difficulty and high risk of supporting Taiwan operations, there is no doubt that Beijing is worried. China's historical military philosophy, emphasis on planning and then moving, aim to act only when you have absolute certainty, and risk huge losses by going to war with it. It's better to take people away, weakening opponents with strength deterrence and delaying tactics. Behind this calculation, there is a more critical external factor as well, always constraining Beijing. That's the existence of America. If the People's Liberation Army's own assessment, it will make Beijing think twice about animals, then the existence of the United States, it's a more direct subset of forces. Since the formation of the Taiwan issue, the United States has always been the key to shaping the situation in the Taiwan Strait. External player, as early as the Korean War, America sends troops, prevented China from liberating Taiwan. Decades after that, although the United States established diplomatic relations with Beijing in 1979 and withdraw from Taiwan, but soon, unilateral declaration through the Taiwan Relations Act, continued security and error prevention for Taiwan, gives support. So, in a nutshell, the United States has always played the role of Taiwan's umbrella company. Beijing knows very well. Once an armed offensive is launched against Taiwan, the United States is highly susceptible to military intervention. Especially in recent years, a number of senior U.S. officials have publicly stated their position. If the mainland attacks Taiwan, the United States will defend itself. This kind of security commitment to handling cases when planning any military action against Taiwan, you can't help but include the United States. If there is a conflict between China and Taiwan, that almost means, with the world's leading military, powerful countries go head-to-head. This is a terrifying prospect that Beijing is absolutely unwilling to address. The United States has a strong naval and Air Force expeditionary capability. Multiple military bases are deployed in the Pacific Rim region. When conflicts with allies break out, the U.S. Aircraft Carrier Battle Group, the Nuclear Submarine Fighter Group, will likely directly attack the Taiwan Sea. In addition, U.S. allies may also step in. Japan and Taiwan are geographically similar and has a security alliance with the United States. Once the Taiwan Strait goes to war, Japan is likely to be in logistics, intelligence, and even direct military support to protect their own safety. Countries such as Australia may also be to some extent in response to the actions of the United States. By then, China. The risks and difficulties are far greater than single-handedly challenging Taiwan. Not to mention, the United States also has nuclear weapons as a final deterrent, even if all parties are unwilling to take the conflict. Upgrade to the nuclear level, but the danger of a hot war with a major power, always lingering. Even without considering the most extreme scenarios, even if it's just a conventional war. China's economic lifeline, the coastal regions, it will also be exposed to long-range precision strikes by the U.S. military. The development achievements of China's decades of reform and opening up may be destroyed. Communist Party of China, leader Zheng Xiaonan, a major war with the United States would be a disaster. Sex, therefore, before there is no certainty that the United States will stand by. Rashly treating Taiwanese animals is tantamount to setting fire to yourself. It can be said that the possibility of U.S. intervention. It's Beijing on the Taiwan issue. One of the main concerns? To reduce this threat, China, on the one hand, strives to upgrade its armaments, developed such as the Dongfeng series anti-ship aircraft carrier killers such as ballistic missiles, attempt to engage the U.S. military. On the other hand, also through diplomatic means, constantly warning the United States not to overdo it. However, the U.S. military is also actively strengthening its Asia-Pacific deployment, ensuring the ability to intervene in the situation in the Taiwan Strait, the game between the great powers. It further complicates the Taiwan issue. After all, in the comprehensive national strength of China and the United States, before there is a significant reversal, China uses force against Taiwan always meant a direct confrontation with the United States. This high-risk red line. So much so that Beijing has to be careful. The response and pressure of the international community as a whole. It is also an important factor that Beijing has to consider. Modern warfare is often not just about two sides. It will attract global attention and intervention. If the Chinese armed forces, it will undoubtedly be used by many countries. It is seen as a huge impact on the international order. The consistent position pursued by most countries, it is to maintain the status quo of peace in the Taiwan Strait. Once this status quo is broken by China by force, it is bound to provoke strong diplomatic condemnation and sanctions. The first is the risk of economic sanctions. Refer to the consequences of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Western countries quickly united against Russia, imposed severe sanctions, kick it out of the international financial system, freeze overseas assets. Economic transactions have sharply declined, although China's economy far exceeds that of Russia. Deeper connections to global trade and investment. But if you provoke a war in the Taiwan Strait, likely to face similar containment. The United States and its European allies, it is possible to freeze China's huge overseas assets, Cut off exports of key technologies and equipment to China. Many multinational companies will also consider withdrawing from the Chinese market to comply with sanctions, or due to public pressure. The high-tech and manufacturing industries that China relies on for development will be hit hard. For one, for the Chinese government, which values economic development, this is an extremely undesirable situation. Secondly, diplomatic isolation will also follow. Although many countries are currently on the Taiwan issue, adopt a vague or cautious approach towards China, but it was built on peace, without rupture. If Beijing takes the lead in using force, not only Western countries, even many developing countries that are friendly to China on weekdays, will also stand on the opposite side and condemn aggression. After all, the attack on Taiwan today, another day may also threaten the security of other regions. No country. I hope there will be such a precedent in international relations. Therefore, China may be trapped in a situation higher than in 1989, the more serious diplomatic dilemma after Tiananmen, seen as a global troublemaker. Although the United Nations, because of China's veto power, difficulty in passing substantive resolutions. However, public opinion in the United Nations General Assembly, condemnation and moral pressure, it will still cause image damage to China. Countries around Asia will also be deeply uneasy, one after another, to strengthen prevention against China, perhaps even closer alliances. To contain China, the delicate regional balance will be upset. East Asia is in danger of being drawn into a new Cold War. All of this, both are in line with the peaceful development that China has long advocated, run counter to. In addition, there is a war in the Taiwan Strait. It will deal a serious blow to the global economy and order. Taiwan Strait. It is a shipping route from East Asia to the Pacific Ocean. A large number of freighters pass through every year. Taiwan is also an important producer of semiconductor chips. If war breaks out, global supply chains will be severely impacted. Manufacturing and technology industries in many countries will be affected. These countries are bound to face economic losses. Count on China. Further increase opposition to China. Feeling and pressure. So let's just say that, if China rashly treats Taiwanese animals, greet him. It will not only be a counterattack by the Taiwanese and U.S. troops, and condemnation and punishment from all over the world. From economic sanctions to diplomatic isolation, to the pressure of global public opinion, China could pay a heavy price. If Beijing wants to realize its vision of a rising great power, the response of the international community must be taken into account. Impossible to be reckless. Launch a get yourself into an embattled war. This concern, undoubtedly, it has also been China in the past 70 years. One of the important reasons for the delay in starting a war against Taiwan, except for the external sounds, of course, withdrawal and consideration from within China itself, equally profoundly influences decision-makers' choices. Except for the external environment, the reality within the People's Republic of China, it also has a profound impact on the decision-making of animals in Taiwan. The first is economic development and people's livelihood considerations. Over the past few decades, Chinese mainland puts economic construction first. The living standards of ordinary people continue to improve. Such achievements are built on peace, in a stable environment, in the event of a major war, not only finance but also huge sums of money for military spending, domestic investment. Employment prices will also be affected. War means casualties and destruction of property. Many families may have lost loved ones. Loss of livelihood, social stability will be tested. CCP authorities, it has always been based on economic growth and national prosperity. To prove their legitimacy, rashly start a costly war. In case the battle goes wrong, it is likely to shake public confidence in the government. In comparison, maintain the momentum of peaceful development. It is more conducive to strengthening internal hearts and minds. Secondly, politics. Stability and regime security. Although Taiwan is unified, in the official language of the Communist Party of China, it is a sacred goal. But the leaders of Zhongnanhai must be calm. Weigh the timing and means of achieving this goal. For any ruler, waging war is a double-edged sword. If you win, you can leave your name in history. If you lose, you may be notorious for a long time or even lose power. Modern history. Argentine military government due to the Falklands War. The examples of failure and downfall are still vivid in my mind. Of course, the decision-makers of the Communist Party of China are unwilling to fail their subordinates. If the animal fails or gets stuck, not only is unity hopeless, on the contrary, it may raise domestic doubts about the leadership and power struggle. This is a risk they would never take lightly. Again, the actual combat experience and capabilities of the Chinese military, also one of the considerations. Although the People's Liberation Army is well equipped. But since the conflict with Vietnam in 1979, there has been no large-scale actual combat. A generation of officers and soldiers who grew up in a peaceful environment for decades, lack of baptism of war. Training exercises cannot replace the test of real swords and guns. Beijing's top management will not be unaware of this. On the question of whether we can win the battle against Taiwan, the People's Liberation Army itself may not be 100% sure. Political rhetoric is easy. When it comes to putting it into action, reason makes people calm down. As the old saying goes, be careful. That's exactly why. Beijing prefers to continue to wait and prepare. Gradually increase the odds, not rashly. There is also the issue of winning the hearts and minds of the Taiwanese people. If Beijing ultimately wants to unify Taiwan, it's better to do it in a relatively peaceful way. This will be beneficial to the future integration of the two sides. Therefore, the Communist Party of China has long been a soft and hard approach to Taiwan. On the one hand, release economic benefits and exchange goodwill, emphasize fellowship. On the other hand, through military action and diplomatic blockade, pressure on Taiwan. However, in recent years, Taiwanese public opinion tends to maintain the status quo, even pushing the proportion of autonomy up. Every time the mainland presses hard, the mood of the Taiwanese people has also risen. Beijing is also aware of military action will only make Taiwan worse in the short term, more centrifugal. A united front within, before the strategy does not achieve the desired results. Use force too hastily. On the contrary, it may be permanently destroyed. The possibility of peaceful reunification. Therefore, Beijing prefers to maintain the status quo. It's using time to change the backlash. Xi Jinping and other current leaders have also repeatedly emphasized the Taiwan issue should not be postponed indefinitely, but without setting a clear deadline. Just unify. As the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. Part of the process, this attitude is both resolute and flexible. It also reflects the use of strategic patience, waiting for better opportunities to arise. Such patience and determination is the key to understanding Beijing's behavior. In fact, even the American expert. And I saw something, and told the truth in one sentence. Now, but let's go back to that puzzle that we started with. And a quote from the American expert. This person's name is Lian Yu. I'm a professor of political science at Columbia. Decades of hard work in the field of Chinese research, known as a veteran China expert. During a discussion on the Taiwan Strait issue, some people ask that since China's military is becoming increasingly powerful, why are you still hesitant to treat Taiwanese animals? After listening to Lian Yu, just a simple sentence gave him his answer. He said that the reason why China has been slow to overhaul Taiwan, it is precisely because of China's position on the Taiwan issue. Have enough patience, willfulness, and determination. One sentence pierces the secret. The audience quieted down for an instant. It seems that everyone is being careful. Savor the weight of this statement. Patience and willfulness. The word determination sounds simple. The single back reflects Beijing's grand strategy on Taiwan. Liang means, China is not unable to defeat Taiwan. It's not that I'm too afraid of America to take action. They're playing a deliberate long game. To pursue the most powerful opportunity for unity. It's not a tactical issue. It's a strategic question. Beijing believes that time is on its side. They have the willpower and patience to drag on until a situation comes to pass. Before taking action, as the saying goes, respond to changes without change. Maintain the established policy. Don't act rashly, no matter how the external environment changes. As long as China's own strength continues to increase, one day you can win without a fight. From the current trend, Li's judgment is not without foundation. For decades, the improvement of China's comprehensive national strength is obvious to all. The total economy has ranked second in the world. Military spending and technology levels are on the rise. In contrast, the United States and Western society, but it faces internal fragmentation and fatigue. Some emerging countries are involved in international affairs, also more inclined to cooperate with China. International pattern. It is evolving in a relatively powerful direction towards China. China's leaders were well aware of this. Therefore, I am more willing to spend time waiting. The longer it takes, the better for China. This is exactly what Lian meant. Imagine a few years from now, China's military might enough to make the United States dare not go to war lightly, or more countries around the world will accept cross-strait reunification, inherited fact. Then Beijing can naturally do it at a smaller cost, achieve goals. Patience itself, it has become an extremely important card in Beijing's hands. Li has this sentence. Let's re-examine the dynamics of the situation in the Taiwan Strait. It turns out that compared to the moment of emotion, Beijing has chosen a long-term plan of sharpening its sword in 10 years. This is both confidence in the growth of one's own strength. There is also a clear understanding of complex risks for Taiwan and the countries that support it. This sentence is also a reminder. Beijing is not holding back because of timidity. They play a long game of chess. Only by fully recognizing this, to develop an effective response strategy. To sum up, 70 years, Chinese mainland has not resorted to force against Taiwan. It's no coincidence. It's a combination of factors. Lack of strength from early years, U.S. involvement, to subsequent military threat and risk assessment, international pressure considerations, and the pursuit of stable development within China. It no longer affects the judgment of decision-makers. And here's the thing, Beijing has chosen a long-term business path. Trade patience for a better chance of winning in the future. As the American expert put it, China's patience on the Taiwan issue Willfulness and determination make it rather stand still. Also, wait for an ideal opportunity. This is both a strategic consideration. It is also a manifestation of self-confidence and determination for both sides of the Taiwan Strait and the entire international community. This means that in the short term, the probability of an all-out war may not be high, but that doesn't mean the danger is gone. On the contrary, this game around Taiwan, it's just going on in another form. Shoot a gun. Dark war is hard to prevent. Beijing's plan is to wait for a more favorable environment. Taiwan and the countries that support it. You need to strengthen yourself during this time. Risk prevention. Both sides are in a race against time. 70 years of stalemate still unresolved. What will the future hold? No one can give a definite answer. But one thing is for sure. The fate of the Taiwan Strait cannot be decided overnight. In the foreseeable future, this battle without gunpowder smoke will continue. And we can only use calmness and wisdom, sideline thinking, in order to see the context clearly in the changing situation. In the long river of history, 70 years may just be a fleeting moment. For both parties in the game, it is a long test of rise and fall. Time will eventually give the answer. We'll just have to wait and see.